Yes, that's right. The Survivor Know-It-Alls are back to talk about the world's worst person ever, Steven. Boy, this Sam guy really burns me up.
Wow, I was so triggered in these last two episodes. Like, I never understood trigger warning. I mean, I always got the principle of trigger warnings, but I was like, oh, these kids, they can't take anger, and now I get it. Sam like triggers me so hard where I wanted to tweet to him. I wanted to tweet, "You're a jerk, Sam."
Yeah.
There's very few. Having received a lot of those tweets myself, I always feel like, how are you basing your opinion of me as a human being off of like this highly edited reality show? I outraged.
Outrage. Plenty of outrage tonight to talk about another week. Week 6 is in the books for Australian Survivor, or as Stephen Fishbach calls it, real know-it-alls dress rehearsal.
Yeah, well, no. What? I don't even know what that means.
Yes. All right. So we'll be with you for the first time back-to-back nights, Stephen, as we get ready for episode 2 of Millennials versus Gen X coming up tomorrow. But that is not what we're here for tonight. Week 6. And Stephen, we got the jury. The jury started. Only.
My God, yes.
Yeah, Paul Borges.
I'm so glad Nick is.
Just sent me a meme of here is Kate, played 35 days, didn't make the jury.
Is that right? Was she 35 days?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That is really crazy. They played like really longer than almost every Survivor contestant ever and did not make the jury.
Right.
Yeah, that's insane. I'm glad Nick is on the jury, and I love seeing Sam's smug face when he realized Nick was going to be on the jury. Sam may not have even known that there was a jury, and that he couldn't just be a smug jerk to everyone around him.
Yeah.
And get away. Oh God, the smug, it drives me insane.
All right, hold on. Hold your horses.
I'm so angry.
Calm down. Count to 10. All right, let me just set everything up here tonight. Of course, we're live here on robbinswebsite.com. Hashtag RHAP. Scott St. Pierre is standing by to bring your questions into the show, and we will take them. Of course, I've got a bunch of questions that were emailed to us at our survivorau@robbinswebsite.com email address, and you could subscribe to our Survivor Australia or Australian Survivor even podcast feed at robbinswebsite.com/SurvivorAU. So it was a busy week in Australian Survivor where we got to the merge, but we lost Connor. And
heartbroken.
Then Nick. Nick is gone. And
Kate was another smug one too. She was smug as well. Too good to play the game. I just can't lie and play the game.
It seems as though we've reached a point, and I'm not sure if you and I are out on a limb in that Nick was not the best Survivor player ever. He's some combination. He's somewhere in between Jonathan Penner and Marty Piombo on the good player scale. I mean, he is not a fantastic player by any stretch of the imagination, but he tried hard. And I feel like that,
without a doubt, is the player who most looks like you.
Okay, and he looks, he bears a resemblance to yours truly.
Yeah.
So, all that in mind, Stephen. So, I feel like in American Survivor that I feel like that he would be treated with some reverence in that, boy, that guy, he never gave up. He was always trying to work all of the angles. But I feel like that the Australian Survivor players treated him like he was some sort of cancer to the team or some sort of terrible thing that they needed to get rid of. You had Sam talking about how he doesn't even deserve to be here. It killed him that people like Kate went out of the game. And they didn't deserve that. Nick didn't deserve to be in the game.
Meanwhile, this is the guy who's like played an idol, did this other thing, got to Nick was, had to bounce from tribe to tribe. I loved Nick's response to this, and I actually felt like he was like speaking directly to me through the TV screen, because this is like my mantra, which is deserving is not a metric you can use to measure whether or not someone can be here. It doesn't matter what's fair. Survivor isn't fair. It just matters what people say and what people see the loot and if they do it. I thought that was so perfect. Such a great response. And I disagree, actually. We get crap for overhyping Nick on the internet. I think Nick was a good Survivor player. I don't think he was like, he's not Boston Rob. He didn't win. Neither did we. I thought Nick was a good Survivor player. I thought he played fast at the beginning, realized his mistake, and really pulled it back, and you saw, I mean, I thought this episode, episode I don't remember if it was 16 or 17, but there was one of the episodes where he was like, he put forth a plan, everyone else was like, no, or I think it was when Kate went home. He's like, let's vote out Sue. Everyone's like, no, we need to vote out Kate. So he's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's vote out Kate. And I thought that's exactly what you should be doing when you're Nick in the situation. You're a target always. Put forth your idea as soon as everyone else says their thing. Make peace with it, support it, act like you were in on it from the beginning. And the craziest thing is that Nick really wasn't lying to anyone. Like, that's what I don't get.
Why did Sam have so much animosity, so much Samimosity? I don't know. He was horrible to Nick, and it was like he could not stand the sight of him. And from what I can tell, that Nick basically told one major lie in this game to a tribe that Sam wasn't even on.
Right. And it was like, obviously this is like, the mitigating factors that come out after the fact, but like the neutral box scenario is like the Kobayashi Maru of Survivor. It is an unwinnable situation,
that is meant to hack the game. Yeah. What? You need to fix the game. You need to hack into it like Kirk did.
Yeah. But it's there to teach contestants that there's no right choice in Survivor. All the choices are wrong choices. Yes, he didn't play that perfectly. I actually thought he played it pretty well at the time. He got this terrible reputation at Vivao, and that reputation stuck with him. But it really just seemed to fester. And like, I do think that happens. Like I certainly noticed. Last time I played Survivor, again, much more recently than you've played, that he was, there was a tendency to scapegoat people. Like, this is the person who is responsible for all of the flaws in this game. The reason we're all paranoid, the reason we're all, constantly tripping over each other, the reason there's so much suspicion is because of this person. And there's always going to be that scapegoating. And I think Nick just got kind of like painted with that brush.
I have zero desire to go play Survivor again. The only thing that might drive me back to do it is your incessant taunting that you played more recently than I have.
But not more, like much more recently. Like you played before there were even immunity idols.
All right.
But let alone advantages. Was there a swap? Did you even have a swap?
It's called a merge back then. Yeah. But anyway, Steven, I'm not gonna stop trying to bait me with throwing things out there that I have to respond to. That I don't know who you think you are.
Yeah.
Steven, so with Sam, I don't get what happened that triggered Sam into his real strong negative feelings towards Nick. I mean, can you put your finger on anything?
I mean, his only reason was like, I heard bad things about you from people who are at Vivao, which is what, like, I guess, well, here's the thing, right? It's just like this, like, this case of smug, right? The whole principle of an alliance of like good guys, is so outrageous. Oh God, it just burns me up. But he was presenting that as sincere. Like, for Sam, there were good guys, and like he was one of them. And who else? Kate was one of them, and Lee. Yeah,
Kate, Connor was one of the good guys.
Was Connor one of the good guys? Because Sam voted out Connor.
Yeah, no, but Sam loved Connor. I think that they were, they were bros back from the original Sinapu. And then Connor ended up bringing him over. Even at Vivao, like, he never actually held it against him. I think he would have wanted to save him, but it just it drove him crazy that they voted out Connor and Kate. I mean, Kate was fine. Kate was nice, but I don't know why she was on her high horse too about Nick is the worst thing ever.
And here's what I don't understand. All right. Like, this is my question, which is that, is this BS? Like, in Survivor US, right? If Sam was getting the exact same edit that he's getting, he would be being presented as either a hypocrite or an idiot, right? Because Survivor US like valorizes game players. So I think Nick would be coming off pretty well, right? And I think most people would be like, oh, I love that Nick guy. There'd probably be some people who'd be like, oh, that Nick guy's a weasel. But Sam would I think look like a hypocrite. And I'm curious if to the Australian audience and in the mind of the Australian producers, like, is Sam a good guy? Like, is the good guy thing ironic or is it real?
Yeah, let us know, because I really felt like that at Tribal Council. I felt like that Jonathan was buying into the narrative of these were the good guys versus Nick, who was the schemer.
Right. I thought so too. I thought like certainly in episode 16 with the Kate vote out, I really felt like Jonathan was buying the good guys thing. I mean, I felt like Nick got so much humanizing airtime, like that really powerful confessional about his family and about how like, you know, he's just a normal guy who loves his fiance and misses his mom and like has students. Like in my mind, that was you know, meant to sort of show Nick's a good guy, but you know, and all this good guys, bad guy stuff is ridiculous. But like, also, I'm me, you know, and like, I get it. You know, there are, I mean, certainly with Survivor Cambodia, you know, there were people who were like, "Oh my God, Andrew Savage is such a hypocrite," and there were people who were like, "Andrew Savage is such an upstanding guy, and this Fishback is such a weasel." So like, you know, people are just, you know, the interesting thing about reality shows, which make them unlike scripted shows, is that people's subjective reactions really are totally different and determine like such different preferences.
And I have a feeling that this is probably going to get twisted in the retelling of this podcast. That if you guys wanted to vote out Nick, that's fine. He probably should have been voted out on day 12 or 13 at the point that he was originally voted over to Sanapu. That being said, vote him out and say, gotta vote you out, Nick. You're playing that. If we don't vote you out tonight, you're gonna win. You're playing the game way too hard. We can't compete. Don't make it about character of that you have to get out of here because you're this terrible snake and I can't stand the sound of your voice. I heard that, Sue. And I mean, Sam took so much pleasure in voting out Nick, and I have no idea what the reason was.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you know, again, like people seem to think think Nick is the greatest player in the universe. You know, just because we you know, I think
not even the best player on the season.
No, and in fact, that's a reason not to vote him out, is that like he's not in a position where he's going to win. People aren't going to vote for him to win because he has this negative perception there. And so this like holier than thou, like we have to vote him out because he's undeserving of being here. I mean, again, like not to take this back to Survivor Cambodia, but like that happened on Survivor Cambodia with people, with like the girls, the Sierra Easton and Kelly Wentworth. And to be fair, Abby is, you know, it was terrible. But like that, Sierra and Kelly, people were like, "Oh, they don't deserve to be here. We have to vote them out." And that's why I was like, this is freaking stupid. Like, what does deserve to be here?
Well, let's talk through some of the other parts of this. Now, Steven, that Nick in the auction in the first episode, he ended up inadvertently getting an advantage. He was going out of his way to not get an advantage, and he bids on a covered item. He was in on basically all of the covered items. He ends up winning a covered item in the auction, and then it is the advantage or is the clue to an idol, and he's crestfallen.
Yeah, I actually love that. I felt like I
didn't want this. I have to feel like that he is at least calling back to the experiences that you went through in Survivor Cambodia and the discussions that we had about how the advantage and the target that it makes you.
Yeah, I thought so too, actually. Like, you know, certainly he's just been through this experience with you know, the neutral box twist, where he knows firsthand that getting something good can be really bad. But I thought so too, where like he really seemed to be aware of those discussions about how like being, you know, get rid of it. In fact, he had one quote, you know, 99% sure I'm going to burn this. There's that 1% chance in the back of my mind.
Throw in the fire.
Yeah. But like that I feel like was our takeaway, right? Or certainly my takeaway coming out of that. I mean, do you agree with that? Like, I thought Nick played it well. Like, play it when you think there's a chance it might be you, get rid of it. Granted, he wasn't going home that tribal council. He certainly had every reason to think he was after he was, you know, attacked on all sides. Like, I thought Nick played the idol as well as he could have.
Yeah, I'd be a hypocrite to say that he played it wrong. I've always traditionally said, hey, if you have the idol and you think there's a chance you could go out, play it. You can live with the decision of, boy, I played an idol when I shouldn't have, as opposed to going home with it in your pocket. So I can't knock him for that. But I do feel like that just the idea of him having the idol was enough to sort of give people pause for putting all the votes on him. I felt like that him having that idol was the one reason why he didn't get voted out. Not even that he played it, more so that he had it. People were like, okay, there are, you know, easier fish to fry.
Right. I absolutely think that may be the case. I mean, I wonder if the reverse happened to some degree, where people thought, it just reaffirms this idea of like Nick being the schemy one, and like being the schemy, like no one cares that that Lee has. I'm sure people are talking about Lee's advantage, but it's not like, it doesn't like play into this myth of Lee. And the problem for Nick of having this advantage, and then the idol, is that it just reinforces people's perception of him.
Talk to me about the advantage that Lee got. He got basically a vote, not a vote steal, but like a vote stop, which seems half as powerful as what you ultimately got in Survivor Cambodia. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it's bad. I think it's weak and so circumstantial to the point that having it is absolutely not outweighed by the target it puts on you. I think having anything in your pocket draws attention to you. Certainly having a mystery clue. Well, I'm sure like some people are like, and Lee's got this thing too, but like, you're right. Like, it doesn't seem to be a big issue.
Not if you're a good guy, people don't care.
You know what? But to Lee's credit, he voted for Kate. He said, I gave my word to people and I'm going to obey my word. And that's the thing that really pissed me off about Sam.
He was like, oh, I'm getting so mad right now. I mean, I might not keep my word. I'm getting so worked up. Like, what was making him so mad at that tribal council?
I mean, I don't know, but at least he wasn't a hypocrite, right? At least he didn't, like, that's what drove me crazy about Sam, is that like, he's like, oh, all these liars. Nick is such a liar. The only person who lied there was Sam. Sam lied to Nick. Like, Sam was the one who went back on his word to Nick. Like, that's what's so infuriating.
Steven, I'm having concerns here with
for my mental health.
Well, no, your medical health, but also the home stretch of Australian Survivor here.
Yeah.
We're down to 10 people, and most of the people that really played a hard game are now gone. And I don't really know how this is going to shake out. I am concerned that this could be a rather ho-hum final 10 from here to the end, where we just vote out anybody who displays a lack of integrity.
Well, I'm really liking Brooke and Flick. I'm sorry. Yeah, Brooke and Flick. Really, really liking them. And I think, these last few episodes, they really sort of started to shine as well. With that long stretch where Raval lost every episode, it was hard to get a sense of really what was going on at Sinapu. This episode, I thought it really showed how well Brooke and Flick are doing on their tribe. And in particular, when they kind of discovered what Sam was up to, I thought their response to that was so on the nose for good Survivor strategy, in terms of not just like, hey, I disagree with your plan to vote out Nick, but more, in fact, they were okay with the plan to vote out Nick. The bigger problem was you're violating trust. And
you didn't tell us.
You didn't tell us. You've broke our trust, and trust is so fragile in this game. Now we're going to be paranoid. Now you're breaking this incredibly delicate thing we have. And I thought that was exactly, and I think Flick had some great quotes about it in specific. Coming out of the gate, I didn't love Flick. I thought she was a little bit like, she kind of seemed like a mean girl. I was wrong. I think she's playing a really strong game that's based on social bonds, and that's based on making sure those social bonds are reaffirmed. So I have faith that, my concern too is that, narrative getting set up where like the good guys take over and like the bad people like Brooke and Flick are voted out. But I have hope for Brooke and Flick.
I mean, where do you think the vote goes from here? All the people that we talked about as potential merge boots are now all gone. So how do you think that the alliance tends to vote? Nick basically called it out on his way out the door. He said, well, you have the three women who are together in Flick and Brooke and Elle. That's a 3. Then you have also Sammy and Lee. They're together. Matt is with them, but he's not actually as close as he thinks he is, which I kind of agree with. I think that Matt has really fallen off the radar.
What happened to Matt?
I don't know. He like really lost his way. I don't know. You forget he's even on the show, other than the whole thing with the letter this week. He's really faded into the background, where he was so prominent in the middle of the game. And then you have like a bunch of other also rans in Sue. Jenna Louise is still there. Jenna Louise hasn't been on the screen in like 9 episodes.
Yeah, she's like 4th place, right? That's what that means. Like, she's like going to be eliminated at the end in a kind of like meaningless, or like 5th place.
Yeah. And then you have Kylie and you have Christy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that the next one, I think we're getting like the inevitable Sue boot soon, probably in the next 2 episodes, maybe 3 episodes. I kind of think Matt may be up, you know, like he disappears for a couple episodes and then suddenly
He's a
like everyone's
magician.
talking
That's what he
about
does.
Matt.
He's the mentalist.
Yeah. I think Matt's in danger. I mean, I was disappointed that we didn't get more Matt because it really did seem like he was a driving strategic force earlier on. I mean, you know, given that there's 30 hours of Survivor Australia a week, like you know, you don't need a character like Matt to disappear.
Yeah, you don't need him to disappear. Steven, just in sort of like the Monday morning quarterback of Nick in his game, it really seems to me that his biggest failure was the inability to mend fences from original Vavao. It felt like to me that there were enough numbers there between all of the people. Like and again, maybe that they never were going to trust him,
right.
But it did feel like that maybe there might have been an opportunity where if he's able to get Jenna Louise back on board, if he's able to get Sue back on board,
right.
if he's able to get Kate back on board, and then there's Connor, it felt like coming into the merge, perhaps, because it felt like there was no ultimate light at the end of the tunnel to stick with the bigger original Sinapu group.
Yes. And I think that actually points to his weakness as a player and maybe even like a misperception of him as a player where, you know, I think people watching, you know, or maybe even people there think he's like this like snaky mastermind, but actually he was a very emotional player, very emotional person. You know, he felt those betrayals deeply when they happened and had a hard time getting over them. And I think that really showed, you know, in the way that he treated Jenna Louise and Sue when they came back, where it wasn't like he was like, all right, let's let bygones be bygones. Like he really felt the emotional need to rehash what happened, kind of play it over, get the apologies he felt he was owed. And I think that hurt him, you know, in the long term, that sense that like, you know, Sue probably, you know, didn't like being held to account, right? Sue wanted to feel like she was in the moral right all the time, right? Clearly she wanted to be one of the good guys. And, you know, I think maybe Nick saying, hey, you screwed me, you know, was really like challenged her sense of self, you know, for Nick to just be like, had Nick just come in and like hugged her and said, I understand what you did. No apologies necessary. I'm not hurt at all. Like you made a decision you had to make. Maybe it would have been a totally different scenario for him.
Yeah, I think if we were going to advise players that were going into Survivor Australia or Australian Survivor Season 2, I think that I would tell players to play it a lot tighter. I think I would advise them to sort of go half speed of the American version. One, you have to survive many more tribal councils, but I really do feel like that the players, this is like the alternate universe where Kelly Wigglesworth won the first Survivor. I think that we're looking at people based on where we were sort of like born of this universe where Richard Hatch wins the first Survivor. And it's like, oh, you got to be strategic. You got to have alliances. This is sort of like, hey, let's all, who's being our friend? Who's being a good person?
But that's my question though. Like, what does the Nick of that season do? You know, in this sort of, you know, I love that. I feel like we've got our hashtag, which is alternate universe Survivor. If that's not, that's pretty long.
Well, alternate universe is Survivor AU, Stephen.
Alternate.
That's what this was the whole time. We had no idea. That's what Survivor AU means. Stephen is dead.
That was my favorite joke you've ever made that we've been podcasting.
Yeah. Thank you.
I can't. I'm done. Let's call it quits.
Thank you. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow night. Survivor Millennials versus Gen X, episode 2, 9:15.
No. So I agree with you. But like then, like, what is the Nick player? What does the Nick player do in that situation?
I think that he just has to resist the impulse. I mean, I think that we saw with Phoebe, you can be, you know, a backstabber at times, but it seems to be, I mean, she didn't even make the merge or the jury. And so it seems like it'll get you maybe through a couple more votes, but eventually there's so many tribal councils. I mean, there's so many more times where if you piss people off, there's just so many more times where it's going to be able to have a chance to come back to you.
Yeah, that's it. That's the thing. It's like you can't like dodge and weave in the same way when it's 55 days and 300 people. You know, it's like it's gonna catch up to you. All these swaps. Well, there weren't that many swaps actually, but you know, there was enough people and every time who had a recollection of what you did, and those, you know, when everyone is just like high-fiving and mate shipping down, you know, like you can't there isn't going to be the same, it seems like, level of excuse for strategic gameplay that I feel like with American Survivor, that whole like Mike Holloway, we're all playing the game here, kind of thing, where like that's not what's happening on Survivor AU.
And I also think that it's a odd marriage of basically we have sort of like a souped up formula of 3 tribes, so many people, so many tribal councils, 55 days. But we have a mindset that's more in line with the way that people played in the original Survivor, which was 16 people and 39 days. And I think that slower pace is more conducive to a game with less people. But this is now so many more tribal councils, so many more chances and swaps and stuff like that. I just don't know if those two things go together to be able to make exciting TV down the stretch.
Well, I think part of the problem is that the contestants are just exhausted. You get that sense from like Lee at Tribal Council. It was like, I'm just tired of this. It's like, okay, when the contestants can't even be bothered to like play the game anymore, like, it's time, it's gone on too long. And I think that's probably part of it. It's like these contestants have been going on for so long, and there's still another 3 weeks left, like 3 weeks left.
There's a lot of time left.
Yeah. And that's crazy. Like, I just, you need people to have energy to play the game.
Steven, how much did you enjoy getting to see everybody read their letters from home?
Like verbatim. Yeah. Read them out loud. No strategy from Matt, but we did get to like hear every word in his letter and see the close-up of the letter.
Dear Steven.
Yeah. Can you believe
so much has happened since you've been gone?
Yeah.
Your dog misses you.
Yeah.
There was a big rainstorm.
Yeah.
We got several inches of rain.
How many inches?
2 inches of rain.
Okay.
It was humid also as well. Boy, this election, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
We're all going to hell in a handbasket.
Were you surprised that there were no family members? Like,
well, I thought that they really, maybe that's coming down the road, but I felt like it was a real bait and switch of everybody talking about how I just need to see my loved ones. I just need to see my loved ones. Jonathan gets to the challenge. Oh, Nick, what do you need? Oh, I really just need to see my fiance. Like, Matt, what do you need? Oh, I really just could use some, seeing somebody from home. Like, well, we've got your letters.
Yeah. And it was also a de-escalate. Like, awards need to get bigger. And this, like, they've had like all these various feasts and things. And
could they get a cupcake with the letter?
Tea. They got tea. I couldn't believe that. I was like, I would have been outraged by that. It's like, that's more insulting than getting nothing. Serve me nothing before you serve me a cup of freaking hot water with leaves in it.
Yeah. I can't get a cookie with that tea. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. All right. Anything about Connor and Kate? I know you came into the season with such high hopes about Connor. You were proven incredibly wrong about how he was a super fan, how he's going to be a great player. One of your worst calls that you've ever made.
Here's what I liked about Connor. First day, Jonathan says to Connor, can you win this game? And Connor says, I don't know. And Jonathan's like, what do you mean you don't know? And Connor says, there's so much luck that goes into this game. So many things can happen. You've got who you're cast with, the different challenges, the different twists. So who can say? And I thought that was such an astute reading of the game. And Connor was clearly under-edited, right? Like, when everyone voted him out, like when Nick voted him out, he was like, Connor, you're the biggest strategic threat out here. Like, we didn't see that. We didn't get to see that.
Yeah, maybe he's just being nice.
Why would he say that specific thing?
Yeah.
I thought for the merge boot, we didn't get a lot of Connor.
So, Steven, this was a question that came into us to the Survivor AU email address from Ryan, who wanted to know who is playing the best game this season and why is it Brooke? Do you agree with that?
It sure seems to be Brooke, right? Brooke and Flick, at least for now, seem to have a pretty good handle on running things. Brooke is probably better edited than Flick is at this point. She gets more consistent airtime. She's certainly great in challenges. She's better in challenges than Flick is. I thought that Flick's response, though, to I really was keyed into Flick's response about, when Sam was going to vote for Nick, and Flicks, really emphasized the idea that like you can't switch your vote. And she said it again, I'm never going to change what I say I'm going to do, and I think that's so important.
Yeah, I'm really on the anybody but Sam bandwagon.
Oh my God. Point. Well, I don't think Sam can win. I think he's getting. I think he's being a jerk.
He got a good edit in the beginning of the show.
He did, but at this point,
he may still be getting a good edit. We don't know necessarily what how he's being received.
I just can't believe a universe where people are receiving Sam well.
It's an alternate universe.
It is.
So then, Steven, that you are always following the winners edit. Who has winners edit? I mean, there's a lot of people that we could just cross off the list based on their completely invisible at this point.
Yeah, Jenna Louise not winning.
Jenna Louise is out.
Matt probably out.
L is out.
L is out. Matt probably out.
L is out in terms of a winner. Matt, we haven't seen him in forever.
Yeah. Sue could win.
Sue could win. But again, I think that's a stretch. What's the scenario where that happens?
You said edit though. I agree with you. Her game scenario is very different than her edit scenario. I think Brooke probably has the best edit overall of anybody.
How about Lee? You feeling good about Lee?
I am feeling good. Lee has kind of been under edited, but I think it's all been very positive. I don't think he's going to win. But
Christy, we can cross her off.
I think we cross Christy off, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people other than Brooke, Flick.
I think Brooke is probably winning, to be honest with you.
How about Kylie?
Kylie had that really negative sleeping situation, but other than that, she's been very
positive. If it happens,
what?
Were they not supposed to show that if it happens?
You don't think they don't show some crazy crap from the winners of other seasons? Oh my God.
Okay, well, Steven is like, boy, if I could only tell you, I could only open up the Fishback vault.
Not from the winners of my seasons, but I've heard stories.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take some more questions as we bounce around here with Australian Survivor as we head into it. Right. This is from Revamp World. I'm irritated with the case of smug. And this is, I guess, a Snapchat filter of mad, sad fish.
I look pretty mad, sad. It looks like I've got some sort of thing happening to my head. That's the thing that really got me so riled up. I was obviously sad to see Nick go. I've enjoyed watching him play. I think he gives great confessionals. I think he's a lot of fun to watch. I know he's a very polarizing contestant. Typically the polarizing contestants are the best ones because, and maybe people feel that way about Sam. He's clearly polarizing. I'm polarized. But the smugness of it, of like the calling yourself the good guys. Like, what is wrong with you?
Let's talk about friendship bracelets. Let's talk about the friendship bracelets.
Oh, yeah.
How terrible was this?
That was pretty bad.
So I could never really get a good accounting of who had the friendship bracelets. Was it Brooke, Flick, Elle, Sammy, Lee, and Matt? That was the friendship bracelet crew, or did Christy have one?
I thought Christy, Kate, I thought had one as well. Is
chat room, tell us who had. I thought it was only 6. Tell us, chat room, who had the friendship bracelets. I need to know.
Is there any argument that can be made in favor of the friendship bracelet? Like, they're friends.
No, it was terrible. It was really a terrible job there. Yeah. And I mean, it goes to show that the people are not thinking about this game the way that they should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I was surprised by that as well.
Yeah. And you had a bracelet or you didn't have a bracelet. And the people who didn't have a bracelet never got together and say, hey, we're all the people that didn't get a friendship bracelet. Maybe we should be in an alliance.
Yeah. That's the thing that has happened throughout this, is that the non-core people have done a bad job of getting together. They're all, Kylie, for example, this past episode being,
right.
And Christy too. Everyone kind of trying to scramble to stay on the fringes of the core
Nick
group.
Could have been that guy that was his role, to be that force, to be able to pick up all the bottom feeders.
But Nick thought he was in the core group. From Nick's perspective, he was in. He had just been on Sinapu that entire time. He had a tight relationship with the core girls. From Nick's perspective, hey, if I stay down to the 6 key core Sinapu or whatever, and then I'm tight with Elle, Flick, and Brooke, like, I'm in the final 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see ultimately where this goes. Let's take some more questions. How about this one? Stephen Schultz says, why are they using Monopoly money? Come on, that's Australian money. It's Australian money. It's not Monopoly money.
I love that kind of joke. Yeah. What else? Okay. Well, there's a lot. I have a lot of stuff written down here.
Okay. Here, read this question. Edward Morris, was Brooke stepping down for her letter a bad move? Did you like that, Stephen?
I thought that was a bad move. I thought at best it showed, that she was a little bit too confident. If you're in the hunt for immunity, the thing that was crazy to me was like, if that had gone on 6 hours, like they must have been worried about how long is this going to go? Like, are we going to have time for people to go back to camp before tribal council? You could see that it was getting dark. Like, even if they started early, like, let's say they started at 10, like it's still 4 or 6 hours later.
They definitely broke the record on that challenge, though, right? They went way longer than any American version of that. I feel like that Parvati.
For that, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No one's gone.
I want to say in Micronesia, maybe it was like 4 hours that she was up there. I don't think it was closing in on 6.
Yeah. I concur. There's no way that it was. I think that may be the longest challenge ever. No. There's the Palau one.
Palau, yeah. So, Survivor Australia, our Survivor Australia had a pretty long one too at the merge.
Which one was that?
It was like just stand on a log for like 11 hours.
Oh, right. With that Tina, with the Varner stepped down.
The Varner peanut butter challenge, right?
Yeah. Randy Knuppel wants to know, is Jenna Lewis officially at purple status, or is this just the beginning of her silent win?
Silent. But I thought she was good every time that we saw her on the show, but she's just gone completely radio silent over. I mean, she didn't even like take a real victory lap after it was such a storyline of Nick needing to get revenge against her. She was not even leading the charge in Nick's boot episode.
Yeah, I was surprised too. She kind of is just really, and she was a good character when we had her, but she's sort of just disappeared.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. What about Brooke?
What about Brooke?
Brooke Howard.
Brooke Howard wants to know, is Brooke being seriously underrated by everyone? Is this Brooke who's writing this?
The third person? Yeah.
Yeah. Is Brooke seriously underrated by everyone? She's effectively running the dominant alliance, is still loved by everyone there, and is a huge threat and talented. I think this might be Brooke who's
well, who do you see as the alpha and who's the beta in Brooke and Flicka?
I think they've got a good co thing. I think they're good co-allies.
Who's the Steven and who's the JT?
Wow. I know. So who's the Steven Alpha and who's the JT Beta is your question?
You can interpret it any way you want.
I kind of think Flick is the JT, right?
Flick is the JT. Wow.
The Brooke is more of the challenge beast, and she's got that charming Southern accent.
Yeah. And she I
don't know if people sound like in the south of Australia.
Yeah, and she like dates Benry's brother, I think. Is that right?
Flick does.
Yeah, Flick.
Yes, Flick dates Benry's brother.
Yeah. Steve, look at you. But just because you write at people, you're on top of all of the gossip.
You said that. I didn't say that. I confirmed that. You said something and then accused me of knowing it. That's insane.
Dagzek too. What is the definition of snake?
Well, so actually, I thought Nick should be honored that he was called a snake. Obviously, there's a grand tradition in Survivor of being a snake. Sam is obviously the rat, right? The snake is acting like the snake is going to act, as the survivor, and it's going to, but the rat is Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
I can't get over Sam. I really just he was so sanctimonious about everything.
Yeah,
that he was just like really. So why did he hate Nick so much, Steven?
Unclear. Oh, I have another question. What was Nick looking for in the auction? What was Matt looking for?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question about Matt, where Matt hadn't bid on anything. Jonathan's like, oh, I know what you want. Like, how about this? I got an advantage. He's like, no, that's not what I was looking for either. I'm like, what is he like waiting for? Like a particular dish?
Yeah.
Like, what do you got back there? You got any buffalo wings? No?
I couldn't figure it out. Maybe he was waiting for a family thing. Maybe he was waiting for a family thing.
Maybe he wanted a letter. That's it. Maybe he wanted his letter.
That's possible. That is possible.
That's the only thing that makes sense. That's a good call.
Why was Nick just bidding on covered items? I don't understand.
I don't know what he thought he was going to get, especially if he didn't want an advantage.
Yeah, if he wanted just food, like the non-covered items are the ones that are going to be the ones that are like definitely not like bat wings or whatever. That
Well, nobody got screwed on a covered item.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about was vote splitting. In episode 15, Nick puts for the vote splitting pan 5 on Connor, 4 on Kate, and they almost lose the majority because of this, where there's a flip if Sue and Kate try to engineer a flip. And same thing happens in episode 16. Again, they split the votes. Again, they almost lose the majority because of it. This is why vote splitting is very dangerous, and it didn't bite these guys in the butt either of the episodes, but it almost did twice. They almost had split the votes and gave the opposition a chance to get a plurality.
Well, especially in this season when players are acting so unstrategically that you could be splitting the votes and people are like, but I like that person, so I'm gonna go do this.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's clear that none of these people have an idol at this point. Although, I certainly thought that with Wentworth. But I think that this is the danger of splitting votes. And it's why it's such a tricky game in terms of the vote split. It's like, you're right until you're wrong. And then when you're wrong, the internet, won't let you forget it.
Okay. Couple more questions. This is an email question from Noah, who writes in to say, hey, Rob, I'm watching the Tuesday episode. I have a question. After Nick's elimination, there are 7 women and 3 men. Is it possible that all of the women will team up to take out the men, Steven? Could you see the specter of the women's alliance being raised?
I think the people are too worried about Vavau getting to the end. I think that people are too concerned about the narrative of a Vavian at the end. First somehow Kate is a big threat. Now Sue's a huge threat. I actually think like if Christy got to the end, she'd have a pretty freaking good story. I was in the minority on Aganoa. I was in the minority on Vavau. I was in the minority then at the merge, and I'm here. Like I think Christy's like the biggest threat of all.
Is she?
I don't
know. I don't know. I can't co-sign that, Steven.
I don't know. She's got a good story to tell.
Biggest of all?
Do you think a women's alliance could happen?
I mean, I definitely think it could, especially although the challenges have almost favored women. I would say of the individual immunity challenges that we've seen so far in this season, between whether it's hanging upside down or hanging on a pole, or even the one where, centrifugal force ball, we haven't seen one challenge that's like an obstacle course or anything like that, that maybe, Sam or Lee would be able to really just go beast mode on. So, and I don't mean getting Benefact out of the game. But so the challenges I feel like have actually favored the women so far. So it'll be interesting to see if they look at Sam and Lee as a big threat to win individual immunity.
Yeah. Which your point hasn't really been the case. Miles Drummond wants to know, do you guys prefer the host tempting people to drop out of a challenge with treats, or changing the challenge rules at some point to increase the difficulty?
I like the tempting people to leave the challenge more so than some arbitrary rule of, okay, this round, okay, left arm green, that's left arm green. Like, remember we said that.
I know. I think Kylie's switched arms. It was. I mean, yes, like that's obviously was not legal, but it was just like, yeah, like you're saying, basically the thing you said. I want to reiterate that.
Okay.
What did you think of someone on Twitter says, what do you think of Christy giving up her reward to Matt? Is that a good move or a bad move or nothing?
I mean, it seems to be a better move in Australian Survivor than it is in American Survivor. I mean, Matt, you heard Matt say, like, I'll never vote her out. I'll vote for her to win the game. I never want to get rid of her. And even at the point where they were doing the vote split and they told Matt, okay, but let's put 3 votes on Christy. He was like, sort of like, I don't like that at all. Like, I don't want any votes on Christy. She gave me a letter. Yeah.
And then, Sam, of course, is the one who asks, are we allowed to give up our awards? And then he doesn't give up his.
He does not.
Hypocrite.
Hypocrite. All right.
Gertie Alba wants to know, such BS. They should have voted out Sam. Why is he not seen as a sneaky rat? I agree with you, Gertie.
Vote him out.
He is the only one breaking his promises.
Yes. This is an email question. This is from Brad, who writes in to say, as a fan of the U.S. version, I really want a strategic player to win, but the more casual fans in the mainstream media seem to have turned on the so-called mean girls, Brooke, Flick, and Elle. Most people I interact with have players like Sam, Kate, and Lee as their favorites, and aren't liking the cutthroat strategists, which is interesting.
I get like people liking Lee. But Sam, really?
I don't know.
God, that's disappointing.
He wants to also know, this is his question, what do you think of how much Jonathan digs and interrogates during Tribal Council? He's pretty confident and harsh on the contestants, considering it's his first season. So are you in favor? Do you like the degree in which Jonathan is going after people? Because I do feel like that in the American Survivor, it does not hurt you as much. You know, Jeff does give you the opportunity to hang yourself. But in Australian Survivor, where any sort of strategery is really frowned upon by people who, if anybody thinks you're playing the game too hard, Jonathan really, asking what you're up to, I do feel like is inviting people to vote you off.
I like that Jonathan goes after people. I think what I don't like is that he will often out people's games when they're being evasive. You know, when they're intelligently playing, he's going to keep digging with information he has. And it feels like he's trying to get an answer rather than asking a pointed question, you know, and I feel like that sometimes crosses the line that Jeff doesn't really cross. But for the most part, I really like it.
Okay. One last question.
What do you think? What do you think?
I think that I have no problem with what he's doing. It's just that it just is a terrible situation for people who that, you know, we saw with Phoebe and with other players this season, where that I don't have an issue with it if this was American Survivor, what he's doing. But these players, I think, are really keying into, oh, this person's playing really hard. This person's playing really hard. I can't trust this person because they're up to something. Okay. One last question. And this one comes to us from Thomas, who writes in to say, who would win in a final tribal council between Brooke, Flick, and Elle? They have played nearly the same game. Greetings from Australia. Well, take Elle out of the equation.
We just don't know. I mean, we don't really know how people feel about them.
We don't know if it's a final 2. We don't know if it's a final 3. We don't know how people vote. Like, oh, you were more honest the whole way through, so I have to vote for you. You played the better game. You won more challenges. We have no criteria to base how the Australian Survivor jury will vote.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess it's going to be something with like challenges and who's like the handsomest, because that seems to be what they.
But interesting. I don't know if Nick has any poll, but he is the mayor of Ponderosa, and there are Ponderosa videos for Australian Survivor. I don't know if you watched any, Steven.
I clicked on it, but it was a 10 play. I'm outside Australia. Do we have a link? Do we have like a US link?
If I find one, I will send it your way. I know people had seen it and were talking about it, but I didn't get a chance to watch it. So we'll see. I don't know. But Steven, did Cass have any sway on your vote in Cambodia? Did she absolutely
think Cass swayed the votes in Cambodia. I think everyone who's on the jury sways for long enough sways the votes. I mean, there's no question that the jury is a decisive force in who ends up winning the game.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, not just like, obviously the jury is the decisive force, but there's no question that like jury biases end up influencing people.
Steven, the hashtag now hashtag Survivor AU for the alternate Survivor alternate universe.
Or do you want to just do hashtag alternate universe?
Okay.
You choose. You're better at this hashtag game than I am.
I would say go Survivor alternate universe, because Survivor AU is taken, and then alternate universe is probably
a lot going on with that.
Specified. All right, so Steven, tomorrow night you and I will be back here 9:15, our first live know-it-alls of the Millennials versus Gen X season.
I can't wait, Rob. Our first know-it-alls together. Yeah,
mateship. Yes, you and Tyson did a great job last week. Very impressed with the work that you guys did. Well done.
Means a lot.
Well done. So we will be back next week to only build on the momentum started by Steven and Tyson last week. And then, of course, PG Law is going to be here in the studio, Steven.
Oh, that's fun.
On Thursday. That'll be fun. Talk to the next person voted out. And then voicemails with Darnell Hamilton. Very excited about that. Wow. Of course, we'll also kick off our BBOTT coverage on Wednesday night, as Jordan Parhar will have our live coverage of the first episode of BBOTT. Steven, I know you're pumped up for the OTT.
Oh, yes. Yes.
All right. Thanks so much to Scott St. Pierre behind the scenes tonight. We'll be back again next week to talk about week 7 of Australian Survivor.
How many more episodes are there of this?
I mean, I figure that if we're down to the final 10, also a little programming note, I don't believe there's an episode Sunday night next week. There's only 2 episodes that we're going to be talking about next week.
Oh my God.
So you got an extra hour of your life back.
At least an hour, like 85 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that then we'll be down to what? Then presumably, if we vote people out, all these episodes will be down to the final 8 after that week.
Yeah.
And then after week 8, we'll be down to the final 5. And then what do you think? Like the finale is going to be like over 3 nights?
I'm excited. I am fully expecting an Outcast twist. I'm expecting at least 5 people to come back.
I mean, that potentially we're 3 weeks away from the finale.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
I mean, if we get down after we get down to the final
back.
5 after 2 weeks from now,
yeah.
then you would imagine that that all in 1 week they could do the final 4, final 3, then final 2. I don't know. Is there a reunion?
No. There's got to be a reunion.
Okay.
So
Adam Rita in the chat room saying 10 more episodes left. So by my accounting, if one person gets voted out per episode, that only gives 8 more episodes. So it looks like there could be 2 more hours of the show where people aren't getting voted out.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
So we'll see. It looks like we're 4 weeks away from the finale.
Okay.
All right, Steven. Great work.
All right. This was fun. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.
Bye.